Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. Thanksgiving's approaching, and this is kind of the holiday season coming, but it's also when both my daughter's birthdays are. Hannah's is November 3rd and Lila's is December 3rd. And I want to make a painting for her. I told her a year or two ago that I was going to do this, and I keep putting it off. But her birthday's coming, her 30th birthday. So I am going to make this. But, you know, part of the challenge is when you're making something for someone that can get in the way. So this is kind of like a commission, although I kind of know, you know, I have a lot of freedom with it. But I thought it would be interesting to go through this process. I think it's just going to be really interesting and maybe helpful for some of you guys out there in terms of how you start something, how you keep it your own, but also know that it's going to be for somebody else. How to start something, how to stay in it, how to get through the parts when you lose your way, which I'm sure I will, and then how to finish something. So I'm doing this in parts. I don't know how many parts there's going to be. Just giving myself half an hour here to start this. And so that's what I'm going to do. So today, and I'm hoping that, you know, I've been doing a lot of painting sessions with other artists on Zoom, and it's kind of fun just knowing, hearing, listening to people talk when they're making work, and I can kind of make my work while I'm listening. So maybe just listening will give you some ideas as you're making your art. And know that you can see this. We have a YouTube channel where we produce these podcasts as videos, so you can go check that out as well. So I'm starting today. This is a 54 by 60 inch painting. And it's going to be kind of slightly horizontal because it's 60 wide. I really love those proportions, by the way. And it looks pretty small in the screen. It's really because I'm really big, but it's a nice size painting, and it'll look great in their house. I've kind of measured it. I've kind of looked at their place, their apartment. They live in Brooklyn. Canvas on hardwood panel. I will take the canvas on at the end. I'll probably show all this and talk about it when I get it done. So that'll be interesting. Shipping it up, I can show you and talk about ways of shipping art and everything. But I'm going to be doing an acrylic painting here. And usually all my paintings are in oil. And I've been learning how to paint with acrylic on large pictures. I know acrylic really well. I teach with it. I do a ton of small paintings, but all my large paintings have always been oil. But I'm trying to get this acrylic going in a way that is exciting for me and can feel like oil paint. And one of the things that I've struggled with is that it's so flat and it dries so quickly and it's so hard, I can't scrape into it. So I found some ways, and I'm working on some ways, and I'll be sharing that today, of building up the acrylic paint to keep it soft, to keep it so I can scrape into it. And I'll be doing that on this painting. Okay, so let me just talk a little bit about starting. It's nice to hear people share how they begin a thing. I don't, only because you might glean something from this, but I don't plan anything. I'm not thinking about who this is going to be for. I know that it wants to be kind of a light painting. I want it to feel light and kind of airy and spacious. That's the feeling of my daughter, you know, and it's like, there's all kinds of possibilities in her life. And, you know, so it doesn't feel heavy. It feels light and like springtime, you know. So what I'm thinking is, you know, I scrape through, I do a lot of textures and things, and I will want those marks to show up when I am scraping through that light paint. And so I will be painting today, I'll be putting down dark colors. It's also the total opposite. I like starting in an opposite way of how I want the painting to feel. It just creates tension. So that's kind of something that I notice I do. I like the extremes. I want differences. I talk a lot about this. I'm going to want like light colors. And so I'm just going to go in on dark. And my goal right here, right now, is to just cover this in about half an hour. So again, these are acrylic paints I'm using. They're all Art2Life paints, but it obviously doesn't matter what kind of paint you use. But these are jumbo bottles. We don't sell these, but these are, big, huge bottles that I use. I use a lot of buckets, small containers to take the paint to the surface. Because it just takes so long to mix it on a palette. I like to use buckets of stuff, especially at this stage. So one thing that I've been learning about this is that I want the panel to not dry so quickly. So what I do, starting, and I'm going to do it right now, is I'm just going to wet it. Just going to wet this surface. I have learned that if the surface is damp, even just a little bit, when you put paint on top of it, when you put acrylic paint on top of it, it just slows down the drying time so much. The reason I've been using acrylic is because it's not as toxic. And it is ultimately faster because it dries so quick. And because I'm taking these paintings and rolling them up, like this is going to get rolled up and sent to New York and be stretched in New York, that rolling process has given me some trouble with the oil paint. The way I was using cold wax and oil paint, it was cracking. I was getting some cracks. So, I can't tell you how nice it is to not be wearing a mask right now. It's just sort of easier. And there's something also about just, what I want to do is I'm covering the whole, I've touched all sides of this painting now. Like I'm almost getting familiar with it. Like I'm just in it psychologically. Okay. Now, when I begin, as I said, I don't think a lot. I just choose random colors. And they're not really random. There's definitely, sometimes it makes sense, but it's only makes sense later. I don't try to figure it out at all. This is just fun, and I keep it really loose and unplanned. So I'm mixing up kind of dark colors. I don't use the paint straight out of the bottles as a general rule. I like to complement it down. So I'm using some red here. I put in some black and a little bit of this green yellow. Obviously, I'm going to be putting more saturated colors on later, but I kind of reserve that color. I kind of kill down that color. And it's amazing how smooth the acrylic goes on when the canvas is wet. Now I've got gesso on this canvas, but it just goes on so much better. It's taken me a long time to figure that out. I don't know why I always used it. I never thought of doing this. And I'll use, whatever I mix up right now, I'll probably use all of it. I'm not thinking of anything. I'm just getting some paint on here. Now I tend to smooth the paint out with a trowel. I'm interested in filling in all that rough canvas. I've used large tools as I'm putting the paint on, and almost always, because I like to take my hand out of it. I don't want it to be so, I just want it to feel kind of almost magically made, and that the marks are bigger, in a sense, than me, and that they're a little out of control. Okay, so I'm going to put on lighter thing here. This size bucket, I use a 2-quart mixing bucket. I find those are the best because a 5-inch brush can fit in it. And a 5-inch brush is really a nice one, especially for starting. Sometimes I'll use the same dark brush. So I'm making this green color, and I'm adding, as I said, just some complementary red to it. I can't tell you how much better it feels when the canvas is wet. It's just amazing. Along the way, to making something, like, I don't know, this color I just made, I love this color. Things are happening as I'm going that give me information. And making this color, for example, this gray, which is a kind of like chromium oxide green, light green, and red, dark red, just makes such a gorgeous color. Things happen like this that interest me, and I tend to want to do more of them. If that color combination is exciting, or, I'm really loving what's happening there, I want to bring more of that color in. So, it's just something that's kind of interesting and happens. You're going to get so much information as you go. You don't need to spend any night time worrying or trying to plan this. At least that's how I see it. So much is going to happen when you're making it. So I'm going to come in with a new color, and I'm going to go really light on this, or kind of light. Again, I'm using that same brush, so it saves me time. I don't have to clean up so much. Sometimes I'll just check the color on it, and if it's too similar, I will change it. I like to keep the differences between things great in the beginning. Dark and light, dull and saturated. I need to have that energy. There's not much going on in the beginning, so having differences keeps me interested. So I'm not going to use this kind of it's sort of light gray, greenish color, because it feels too similar to what's already there. So I'm going to take that color and I'm going to lighten it up a lot more so it's different, or more different. That's one of the things that I tend to do for myself. A little lighter. It's an interesting idea that providing you as you go, right? Like, I'm not planning anything, but all I'm doing, one of the things I'm doing is I'm making sure that what I'm making, no matter what it is, has some kind of energy to it. So I'm liking this lighter color here. And this is a 5-inch brush. Having enough paint also is a thing. I really paint thick in the beginning, just as thick as I can. I'm surprised, at workshops and stuff, how this is a real challenge for people, because of the materials or whatever. Okay, so now, it's still really, it's amazing that the paint, it's like oil paint. It's still really damp, which is so great. Okay, so now I'm gonna just start adding to this and just get other colors on it. And the reason that I kind of do dark and really light is it gives me room to add things to it and it'll have an impact. Same thing with the colors. If the colors are kind of soft or less saturated, it gives me room to bring in brighter colors, more saturated colors, and more variety. I'm not making a thing here, and so I understand what's going on with design. It's not that powerful, but it's almost automatic. I will balance this. I've got all this dark on one side. I'll probably put some darks over here. So there's general principles I'm thinking about. But again, the painting's not going to look anything like this. So, I don't worry about it too much. I will, however, bring in black almost always for just myself. It helps me see better what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that right now. It doesn't really matter where. I want to feel the full range of things. Look at that acrylic, it's just not even drying. It's amazing. I save all the buckets of paint as I'm working along here. I mean, I won't save them past today, but I do have them all sitting here so I can go back in. I do want to like what I'm doing, even though it's not going to be part of the final. No one will see it. As I go, I have to modify things to like them. So I'm not, again, evaluating this in terms of whether it's here for a long time or not, but I do have to like it. So I will continue to work on a part of the picture until I like it. So I'm liking that better. I'm also not being as specific, like these are general marks here. They're staying open. There's an openness that I like to have in the beginning where nothing's really pinned down. Edges aren't really sharp. Things are moving. I'm definitely not going into any one part of the picture. I'm staying at a distance. And this is close to, I'm going to add just a few more accents on this just to activate it. Generally, when I'm working, I will bring a color like this out, but I will bring it to, I'll introduce it in several places, not just one. If I've taken the time to mix it up, I will add it. And I kind of mix on the surface. Sometimes knowing what dark is really helpful. So as I said before, bringing some darks in, black or something strong is important. It seems to help me. Bringing some outrageous color or something that is unexpected as I'm getting this thing going. I want to almost leave the picture, this lay-in, because I'm almost going to stop pretty soon. I just wanted to get some paint on here, but I want to have something to react to. I don't want it to be all perfect. I don't want to care too much about this. I want it to have something kind of interesting. And then putting this weird pink color in feels kind of cool. Now, I've used the same tool a whole bunch of times, and I'm aware of that right now and wanting to do something different. I'm using a paint roller without the paint roller in it. This has an interesting thing that it does. And that paint's still wet, so it's kind of scraping into it. If things start feeling too the same, I really want to make it different. I have to just get more aggressive with it, and that's what's happening with this pink stuff. Learning to use these tools in different ways. In other words, I'm trying to, this painting today looked pretty good. Like I like what was happening to this. And that's the death of you. Once something starts looking really good, and it's all perfect, it just gets, I feel like I'm tightening up. So I actually like it better now, but that's the idea behind doing something bold and drastic, like putting all this raw pink on it. It actually looks pretty good, but that's what I'm doing is I'm just increasing the risk in the beginning stages. If it starts to feel too beautiful, it's way too soon to be worrying about it, how it looks, whether it's good or not. I'm trying to activate this area. I use a lot of blue paper towels, these shop towels. I use them as brushes. I use them to clean brushes and to clean the tools. One thing I'm going to do before I stop is, when I see some of it annoys me, like this edge, how I piled up the pink on this edge, it brings too much attention to it. I want to come back in and fix that edge. So I'll go find the color that I had before, if I have it, or mix more. And sometimes I'll just wipe off, scrape off, remove some paint, usually not so much in the beginning, but in the interest of time, I want to take off that color, bring in more of that red color. The paint's starting to dry now, so I can I'm like adding a second layer here. Using a really large sort of squeegee tool. I'm gonna use it. Okay, so that's kind of where I want to stop. So there's interesting areas, but most importantly, I've filled in the whole thing. And it's fairly dark, it's fairly rich. There's some interesting colors going on in here. But I need to get this. So what I'll do is, on the next session with this, I'll come in, wet this down, and then go back on top of it. I want this to be a bottom layer, so I will let it totally dry now. Anyway, I hope that was interesting or helpful. You never know what somebody's going to say when they're making art, and how it compares or can help your own process. So anyway, I appreciate you being here. And if you know of anyone who is interested in making things in the creative process, please share the Art2Life podcast with them. It's really effective. It really helps. You know, it's surprising how many people find out about the podcast through other people recommending it. You guys, I hope we can get into the studio. I will talk to you real soon. Okay, bye everyone.